This is the CreaseCast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CreaseCast. I'm your host, Lachlan Irvin. I am the only one here today. It's a bit of a throwback episode. I joked about it on Twitter, on our official podcast Twitter at the CreaseCast, that, you know, because the Canucks did a throwback night on Thursday, that we today are doing our own version of a CreaseCast throwback, which is just means a solo episode with me only. We have no guests, no guest co-hosts, no Cody today. It is just me, and for that I am truly sorry. But you know what I'm not sorry about? I'm not sorry about two things. One being that the Canucks won 7-1 over the Calgary Flames on their throwback night wearing the flying skates. I'm not sorry about that. And the other thing I'm not sorry about is my take that the flying skate should not be a regular, like the main jersey. I know I took a little bit of heat for it, particularly from a friend of the show, Wyatt Arndt, over at Trust the Process, about why I don't feel like it should be the regular jersey. I've got it literally sitting or right behind me here, right? So it's not like I hate it. It's not like I viscerally hate it with a burning passion. I think that the Canucks belong in green and blue. I think that's their main color scheme, and I think that it should stick because it's unique to them as far as the rest of the NHL is concerned. But as far as like a third jersey is concerned, I would love to see the flying skate as a third jersey. I think that is the perfect amount of use for a flying skate jersey. Is like, I believe most third jerseys get used about 10, 12 times a year. So it's like still a decent number, but not like so many that you get tired of it. It's enough that it's still special every time they wear it, which is where I think the flying skate belongs. I think it's perfect as a jersey that is worn with a little bit of just irregularity, not for 82 games. If the Canucks went back to the flying skate full time, I would not be happy with that. I don't like the colors. I think the colors are bad. Look, if you want to look like Calgary or Boston combined, like every night, I guess, if you want to pretend to be them, but no. Green and blue are the Canucks colors. But the flying skate is a lovely jersey for throwback nights, and it's very, very fun. And clearly, the Canucks are very good in it. They destroy Calgary 7-1 last night in easily the best game of the entire season. Like, I don't think anybody's out to debate that. Like, there's no debate. The Canucks were simply at their best for the entire night. There was no point in that game where they looked out of place. There was no point in that game where they looked like the worst team. They finally played a full 60, which has been one of the hardest things for them to do this year. And they did such a good job of it in that game where they really stepped up to the plate and look against a team that literally had won 10 games in a row, a franchise record. Calgary's rolling at this point in the Pacific Division and looks like they're rolling on their way to a playoff spot. And the Canucks did not care. They did not look like a team that's like, oh geez, this team is way ahead of us in the standings. They're 12 points ahead of us. We have no chance. This is clearly a mismatch. They didn't play like that at all at any point. They played like a team that belongs in that conversation with them, which, whether or not that's true, is a different story. But they played up to their competition. They played up to the level of competition that they were needed to win. And that's why they walked away not only just taking away the 2 points, but absolutely 100% crushing Calgary into the ground and then salting the earth so nothing could ever grow again. Like, that's how good the Canucks were in that game. Now we come to, of course, our favorite part of the night. We come to one of the things that is new today. So one of the cool things about doing a show by yourself versus having a guest on is that there are certain things that I can do now, like certain buttons that I can now press as I readjust my microphone to drop it a little bit farther off screen. There are certain things that I can do now I can do today to kind of bring back some of the buttons. We have a couple buttons that I can now press during the show. And with that in mind, I do believe it's time to hand out our Player of the Game award, or as we like to call it,
the Infinitude Gobbler. It's identical to the one that Sabu wore in the movie Avenga Boys.
That's right, Detective Jake Peralta. It's time to hand out the Infinitude Gobbler, or more accurately, the Infinity Blocker, the MVP of the weekend, or since the last episode anyway. I think there's a lot of options here. I think because Cody's not here, I'm gonna hand out two. I'm gonna give two out because normally we would. Normally we'd have two awards to give out. So I'm gonna hand out both today. My first award obviously goes to Thatcher Demko because of course it does. 29 saves, almost got a shutout, but probably more importantly, he looked absolutely gorgeous doing it. And as I pull it up on screen here, look at that. Look at that. The Kirk McLean tribute gear, absolutely iconic. I mean, look at that. The brown blocker. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's all over Twitter. It's all over the Canucks Twitter. It's all over just about anywhere on social media. Like, there's a picture of it. Holy cow, it looks good. Like, it's such a perfect throwback night. It's such a perfect throwback to that uniform, and it looks so good. Like the all black pads, the leather brown blocker and glove, the composite stick that they designed and painted to look like an old retro wooden stick, and then of course the pièce de résistance, the Kirk McLean mask, the mask that looks exactly like the one Kirk McLean wore in 1994. There were multiple points during that game where I had to remind myself that Kirk McLean wasn't actually the one in net. Like, because it looks so, there's something very iconic about that mask. I think it's just in a way, it's not the V on the chin or like the skate on the top of the helmet itself. It's almost the white space, like specifically where the white spaces are placed on the mask that makes it look really iconic and instantly recognizable. And it works so well. Like today we get really great masks, like some of the things that goalie mask artists are able to do with the tech that they have at their disposal in the 2020s is really incredible and really cool. But there's something really, really unique and really iconic about like some of the old, very simple designs like this one. It works so well. It's truly a masterpiece as I zoom in on that mask. Like, look at that. It's so clean. It's clean. It's crisp. It works so well. Literally, again, he looks just like McLean. He looked just like Kirk McLean. They did really well with that. One thing that Kevin Woodley from In Goal Magazine talked about during the intermission break is actually the rarity of seeing Thatcher Demko or any Canuck goalie for that matter in black pads, because as he talked about, goalie coach Ian Clark does not like his goalies to wear white, to wear any colored pads. He wants them to be white because for shooters, when they're coming up on the goaltender and they have the split second to make a decision, a white pad is a little bit harder to pick up on behind with a white net behind it. Whereas it's much easier to see that in that split second when you're wearing a color like, say, black in this case. The reference he made as well is like black is slimming. As a goaltender, you want to look bigger, and that's true. Like it looks a lot crisper. Like there's something about that look. He definitely looked smaller in net, like to a degree. Like there was something about that design that looks where he looks that much smaller in net. Even though it's the same colors. It's like the same equipment that he always wears. They've just wrapped it a little differently. And overall, just an iconic look. And he did a great job. And he had a shutout going until 2 minutes. Somebody on Twitter said shutout, and of course he lost it with they had the 7-0 lead. Very disappointing in that front. But overall, on a night where the forwards and his defense really stepped up and did their part, and he didn't have to be a game saver at any point. He still played. There was no point where he took a day or he took part of the night off. Like, he was always engaged in the play. He was always making the smart decisions. There was at no point where it looked like he was tired or gassed or kind of like cold. He played truly like he was having himself just a regular old classic Thatcher Demko evening. And then the other infinity blocker we'll give out today. I mean, there's a couple candidates here. I could go to JT Miller because, of course, 4 points, 2 goals, and 2 assists. But I'm gonna give it instead to a guy who actually I don't think has gotten the infinity blocker many times this year, for various reasons. We're giving it to Elias Patterson. 3 points, not as many as Miller, but just one less. Same amount of goals, 1 assist. Elias Patterson scored the first goal of the game, and it was an absolute bullet on the power play. The power play has not been clicking for the Canucks for large stretches of this season. Like, obviously, special teams have been... We've talked to death about the problems with the special teams. It's not really you know it all. You know it all from by now. Why the issues have been there. But in this game, it completely clicked. It was completely clicking, firing on all cylinders. I believe they ended up with 3. They ended up with 3 power play goals, and a shorthanded goal for that matter. The PK showed up. And that shorthanded goal was also Patterson's, where he stripped a defenseman of the puck at the red line, took it in for a breakaway, and just ripped it past Dan Vladar. It was like straight up. First of all, I can't believe it took that long for Patterson to even get some shorthanded time. He was only out there for 19 seconds shorthanded, and he scored. Give him more shorthanded opportunities, because frankly, that's been one of the issues I've had with the PK, and I think a lot of us have, is that they still seem kind of hell-bent on the idea that, oh, your depth players need to be your PK guys. You can't have star players on the penalty kill, which is, I don't think, true. I don't think that's true. I think you can have your best players being your best penalty killers as well. In fact, that actually sets you up really well as a team when your best players are offensively are also your best players defensively. And Patterson showed that there, where he gets just a short opportunity to try and play some penalty kill time, to get some PK time, and he converts that into a goal. He converts that into the 7-0 goal. And it was the nicest goal of the night, in my opinion. There were some very nice goals. Bo Horvat's was wonderful, and we'll talk about that in a second. But for now, I think you got to give it to Patterson. I mean, especially considering what he's been through this season, like, just to get back to playing at the level that he feels he's capable of. He talked about it earlier in the week that he's actually had his wrist taped for a long part of the year, even though he said at the beginning of the season he was totally healthy. Turns out he wasn't. What a surprise. Hockey players playing through injuries and saying otherwise. But yeah, he had his wrist wrapped, I guess, still for a large period of the early parts of the season. Doesn't anymore. And holy cow, he looked so much more comfortable in the last couple games, particularly, and in this one. I mean, both goals were beautiful. He got an assist on the JT Miller goal. He bobbled the puck a little bit on that one. But either way, who cares? When you're hot, you're hot. And yeah, that was a vintage Elias Patterson performance. And they were at point earlier in the season, probably few and far between. Now they're becoming a regularity again. You absolutely, truly love to see it. And that is the infinity blocker for this episode. Now, as far as JT Miller is concerned, obviously, again, very easily could have given the blocker to JT Miller. And because, God, he looked great as well. Like, I mean, Miller is one of those guys, I don't want to say he's a streaky player, because I don't think that's totally accurate. But he's definitely he scores in bunches type guy. Like, I very rarely see a lot. Like, it never seems with JT Miller that he's getting a lot of 1 point nights. There always seems to be 2 or 3 tacked on in an individual effort. And tonight was, if he's not getting 2, he's not getting any. That's kind of what it's been like sometimes this year. And just in general with Miller, he feels like he's very much a points and bunches guy. And tonight he was on. Like he had some of the best plays of the evening. Like the whole top six came to play today. And that's been something that's been missing for a long time. Like Brock Besser didn't have a goal, but he had 2 assists. And both on the power play, but either way, like just another one of the reasons why I'm very adamant that Besser should probably stay a little bit longer in Vancouver is just the idea that, like, I think there's so much more to his game that we haven't seen yet. And nights like yesterday's are proof of that. Like, I think Besser always gets pegged as he's a scorer. He's the scoring guy. And then he can go out and have a really good night moving and facilitating the puck. And that's kind of what you need to see from him if he's going to play top 6 minutes long term and be a big part of your team. He played 16:45 in ice time. He had which is I believe some of the highest among his teammates. I think the only ones higher. Oh my God. Like, I'm looking at the list. You know, what's really funny is I'm looking at time on ice right now. And okay, I believe Besser, just looking at it on a brief glance, time on ice, Besser had 16:45, which I believe on a quick glance would put him third overall in ice time. Third overall in ice time. Second overall is Patterson at 17:01, clocking in with the most ice time on the night with 18 and a half minutes, or at least among forwards, I should say. Among forwards was Tyler Mott, because Bruce Boudreau loves himself some Tyler Mott. And I mean, hey, the guy almost had a goal. Like, he almost had a goal in that game. So can you blame him? I think he had he ended up with, he did not end up with a single point on the night. He ended up, I believe, with a couple shots on goal. But overall, like, he was, like, overall, the whole top 6 came to play. And that has been something that has been a struggle for the Canucks this year, has been the ability to get all of the top 6 going at once. It always seems like one guy's not clicking. One guy is having trouble. In this game, that was not a problem. You have Patterson with 3. You got Horvat with 2. With 2 goals, actually. 2 goals, including the nicest goal, probably the second nicest goal of the evening behind Patterson's, where Tyler Mott strips Rasmus Andersson blocks a Rasmus Andersson shot, manages to beat him in a race for the puck down the ice, gets a weird little backhander away from the net. Horvat scoops it up and just wrists it over Dan Vladar, or over Jacob Markstrom, I should say, over the blocker side. And like, just an absolute, like, probably the nicest goal Bo Horvat has scored all year, which is his 17th of the year, which, like, again, for parts of the year where he was really struggling, or 16th of the year, where he was really struggling to string goals together and has been struggling to get points. He needed that game more than anybody, probably, on the ice, and he clearly passed with flying colors. Besser with the 2 assists. Garland had a goal. It was a bit of a gift goal where Vladar is just, like, way out of the net. A bit of a yawning cage, and at one point it almost looked like Garland was gonna miss. Like, he was like he had such an open net that he almost, like, flubbed it just on, like, this must be a mistake. Like, you definitely have those moments when you play. But he ends up putting it in, 14th of the year. He gets a goal. Obviously we already talked about Miller. And Tanner Pearson had an assist. Just, like, looking through this, like, maybe you'd like to see a couple more points from a point from Höglander and Podkolzin as well, because they're supposed to be part of your solution going forward. But as far as, like, the main top 6 guys are concerned, yeah, they were there. They were very much in the game, and they were very much in the they completely led the way in scoring. Like, you didn't need Juho Lammikko to be the new Wayne Gretzky, or to be playing from behind the net. You didn't need Tyler Mott and Alex Chiasson, or I guess in this game Matthew Highmore, or playing the crazy minutes. You didn't necessarily need some of the depth guys to be as crazy important on the night. And your defense didn't have to be incredibly good either, but they were anyway. Like, the defense did did a really good job for what they had to deal with for parts of parts of that game. They made Thatcher Demko's night a lot easier than you initially thought it was going to be against Calgary. And quite simply put, every player, there was there wasn't even one player on the Canucks who had a bad night. Well, I guess the one person you could throw in there is Jason Dickinson. But that was simply because he got one shot away, and then Eric Goodbranson just kind of sent him flying into the boards and injured him. Like, that wasn't a case of he was personally bad. It was just talk about just from things going from bad to worse for Jason Dickinson, who's already had a tough season. Like, literally first period, only ends up playing 5 minutes because he gets hurt. Right, he gets hurt midway through the first period. Like, what are you gonna do? And for the Canucks to come out with that kind of effort, and we're going to talk a little bit about Jason Dickinson later in the show, I think, specifically because I wrote an article about him earlier this week. But as far as the Canucks are concerned in this game, they played their best game as a group, and they looked like a team that can sometimes compete with the best teams in the NHL. Maybe they can't do it every night. Maybe it's clearly not in the cards for them to be able to do that on a nightly basis. But for one night, they took a team that was literally coming off a 10-game winning streak, has not lost in weeks, and they absolutely put the fear of God into them. Like, you can't you have to imagine Calgary after that game is just questioning everything about themselves, because part of that is just being human, which the idea of no matter how many good things somebody says, compliments you get, that one insult is always going to be the one that sticks with you longer. For the Flames, you can win 10 games in a row. If you have one game like this, though, you're going to start second-guessing yourself a little bit, even with all those wins that you stacked up beforehand. And, the Flames did not like losing. Everything in that game went perfectly. And we're going to, obviously the flying skate jerseys were gorgeous, and we talked a little bit about Demko's equipment, but the rest of the team, they looked good. They looked good playing this game. As you look at Bo Horvat, celebrating, you got Bo in there. You got obviously Demko McLean, who made that one amazing glove save that shades of 1994, on that one glove save he made in the second period. I believe also on Rasmus Anderson. JT Miller just having a great old time. That guy, for a guy who, you worry that he might be on his way out the door like this, you might be seeing some of his last games as a Vancouver Canuck. Boy, he's having fun with it. And he even talked about last night he loves the flying skate jerseys. And then you get the celebration. Everything that could have gone right in that game did. You had Michael Bublé showing up. You had Chase Claypool, who from the Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe, was there, and then he literally did the thing that I think you're not supposed to do at those games. Here's the thing: you're not supposed to do it as an in-arena host or something like that, or as a thing where he just goes, "The Calgary Flames suck," and it was so funny. Imagine you're Calgary, because remember, the Flames can hear that on the bench. They can hear that whole conversation, the whole, everything going on the Jumbotron during the game. And here you have literally an NFL star go on the crowd saying 7-0 is this is the quote from a friend of the show, David Quadrelli. 7-0 is a touchdown score, and I just wanted to say the Calgary Flames suck so bad. And then the whole crowd starts chanting Calgary sucks, which is absolutely when the Flames lost their mind in this game and completely went off the deep end and threw kind of a tantrum at the end of the game. Oh my God, the late game whining from the Flames was so funny. This is a team that's clearly accustomed to winning, doesn't take losing well, and boy, did they not take losing 7-1 well. I mean, why would you? You're losing 7-1. That's a tough scoreline for even the worst teams in the NHL. Don't usually lose a lot of games that way. For Calgary, just there was the one play where I believe it was Highmore clipped Johnny Gaudreau in the face after he was trying to check Kachuk off the puck. He was trying to make the stick check. It kind of bounced back off Tkachuk, ricochet, like the stick ricocheted behind him as he was kind of readjusting, and it clipped Gaudreau in the face. Probably could have been a high sticking penalty for sure. But then the Flames just lost it. Like, they didn't even know he was high sticked. Like, they just reacted. They just saw Gaudreau down at the end of the ice after the whistle blew, and then started going and like, "Oh, you're in trouble, Highmore." Like, it's such like it's such bull crap. Like, it's just one of those like fake tough guy crap that gets you nowhere. And then like Gaudreau got thrown out of the game because he was like complaining about not getting the high sticking call. First of all, it probably should have been a high sticking call. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, that's never in a million years. Like, no, it probably should have been, but also worth noting that you can follow through doesn't necessarily constitute a high sticking penalty. And in that case, because he wasn't trying to make the play on Gaudreau, and the puck and the stick was coming back off of a stick check on another player, that counts as follow through in some cases, which is why probably Highmore didn't get the penalty. Either way, I wouldn't have been that upset if he had gotten the penalty there. But the way the Flames reacted to it was just ridiculous, like beyond ridiculous. And look, I've said it before. Like, I've said it before with the Flames in particular. I think if there was one thing that was confirmed for me tonight or in yesterday's game, it was that the Calgary Flames, in my opinion, even with that they've added Tyler Toffoli now, the Calgary Flames are not a cup contender. They're not there. They just aren't. Like, they've got good goaltending. They've got very good goaltending, but there is nothing about that team right now that screams cup contender. They're so clearly like a long ways away. And I don't think they'll ever get there because they are so hell-bent on winning with, for some reason, the Gaudreau-Monahan ticket, like that core group. Like, it's not just those two players, but like that group that has been there from the 2015s, the mid-2010s. Like, they're so hell-bent on winning with that group rather than building a new kind of core, a newer age core around Matthew Tkachuk, that they've had years to do at this point, that they're never going to get there. Like, they're not a cup team. I don't know why everybody is so, like, I've seen so many people be like, oh, the Flames are real cup contenders now. Nope, no, they aren't. They're barely a first round. They're barely a first round exit team. Like, they're going to do what they always do, which is play a really good regular season and then completely disappear come playoff time. Like, that's just who they are. That's who they are. Like, they were the Leafs before the Leafs. They're the Leafs if the Leafs just could win a round every now and then. That's what the Flames are. There's no difference, in my opinion. They're the exact same. They're the exact same, just a little bit less talented than the Leafs. Like, that's just what they are. I don't buy Calgary as a real playoff threat in any way. Like I've said before, like, if the Canucks make the playoffs, I want Calgary as in the Pacific Division, like, first round. If you can get Calgary, you're golden. You're going to win. Like, the Canucks, I would not put it past them. And this was before the 7-1 win even. Like, there was the 1-0 game. Like, again, that was a 1-0 game. Like, it doesn't matter, like, how clearly outclassed the Canucks were outplayed in that game. The Flames still didn't score until overtime. Like, they're not that good. They're really not that good. I do not understand the hype around them at all. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't feel like they're there. I don't feel like they're going to get there under Brad Treliving. Like, Daryl Sutter's done a lot better with the coaching job. The goaltending, again, he's done a very good job with goaltending and actually keeping the goaltending fresh. Last night, I mean, Jacob Markstrom had a bit of a tough go in the second period. And then you have the incident where, like, his skate blade pops out and they can't get it fixed for whatever reason, and they end up just saying, you know what, like, just take the rest of the night off. I felt bad for Dan Vladar. Like, he had to come in mid Canucks power play, which had already had 2 goals by this point, and were clearly, like, having themselves a game. And Dan Vladar is no slouch. Like, he's a pretty darn good backup goaltender in his own right. And there was nothing he can do. He ends up letting a goal in, like, almost immediately after. He got kind of hung out to dry by his defense. Like, there was nothing that defense could do to, like, really help him in that game. They kept making his job harder. And overall, the Canucks clearly were the better team in that game. And they head on the road against some teams like New York and New Jersey. Some more good measuring stick games, having won one of the biggest games of their season, like easily the best game of the year, but potentially like one of those games that you look back on, depending on how the rest of the year goes, that you might look back on and be like, wow, that was a turning point for them. Like that was a clear, just they change, their fortunes change from this point. That's one of those games that can 100% turn into that down the road. One other thing I wanted to touch on before we kind of get into some harder topics and kind of wrap this episode up to a degree. No, I shouldn't say that. There's a little bit. We definitely have some more stuff to go, but we're keeping today's episode shorter in general just because it's only me today and I don't want to give you an overload of information today when it's just one guy. But one other thing I wanted to touch on as well is speaking of jerseys, is that the Canucks didn't just wear the Flying Skate jerseys yesterday. They also wore these very beautiful Black History Month jerseys, which I've got on the screen right now. So for anyone who's not watching the video version on YouTube or on Spotify, what it is essentially it's a black practice jersey that has like the Black History Month patch in the right corner. But then you have the Orca, which is all black, save for parts of the ice under the logo, like on the arch part of the bottom arch of the Orca logo, which has been shaded in with red, with zigzagging red, green, and yellow patterns. According to Vanbase, the Canucks store website, this was designed by Jason Bempong, who's the creative director of a local clothing brand called Sleepless Minds. And the colors that are incorporated in the design are all have different meanings to them. So the red represents lifeblood, passion, and strength. Green represents renewal, growth, and harvest. Yellow represents royalty and prosperity. And then the black represents spiritual power and maturity. This is based on, I believe, Kente, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or Kent, Kente. Apparently it was popularized among Akan royalty of the Ashanti Empire in the 18th century. So that is lovely. Like it's not only is it just beautiful as I show the picture of Elias Patterson wearing it. Not only is it like a beautiful design in all accounts. Like I just love to see that the Canucks are doing a Black History Month celebration. I wish they had done it earlier. Like I wish they had separated Black Skate Night from Black History Month jersey game, because I feel like it deserves its own kind of separate evening altogether. And I wish they had kind of started and done Black History Month a little like earlier and made it like part of the month rather than kind of doing it at the tail end of the month. But God, that jersey is wonderful. Like it's such a simple yet just truly gorgeous design, and I love that they had a local black artist design it. And I believe the store is selling like some shirts and some stuff with it on there, and I definitely want one. It's beautiful. I would love to see the Canucks do this more down the line and incorporate it even more. One thing I didn't have a chance to bring up and get a picture of for the show today that I would love to see the Canucks do. The Washington Capitals, for their Black History Month celebration, they actually put in a permanent installation at their arena, showcasing all the black players who have played for the Capitals over that time span, over the franchise's history, including Madison Bowie, who is on that. Who is in that display. He of course won the cup with the Capitals in 2018. It's a very beautiful, it's a very small yet very powerful gesture to do that. And to have that, not just like make it a temporary thing, to make it a permanent installation in your arena. I would love the Canucks to do the same thing, to do something like that as well, where they have like a permanent display showcasing the black players who have put on the Canucks uniform over the last years. They did some interesting stuff. Like they had Madison Bowie actually wrote an article for Players Tribune called Hockey Has Always Been Black. It's a very good read. You should go check it out. He also, Justin Bailey narrated a video for the Canucks Twitter, which I forgot to pull up here. But it was a very well done video that that showcased a lot of the players, all the black players who have put on the Canucks jersey over the years, including like Kevin Weeks, including Robin Bawa, Donald Brashear, Nathan Lafayette. Like there's plenty. The list goes on. Anson Carter's another one. There's more, and there's plenty more than that. And it was a very well done video, a very touching video. And again, I would love to see that become part of like a permanent feature in the arena somewhere. There's plenty of room. There's room. Well, I shouldn't say plenty of room. The Rogers Arena is pretty cramped, but there's always room for something like that. There's always you can make room for that if you're the Canucks. You can 100% make room for that, and they should. I would love to see that. If you put it near the Legends Row where they have all the retired jerseys, have another installation just for this, because it would be lovely to have that permanent reminder in the arena. Also talking about just like important recognizing under recognized and underappreciated members of hockey. Carolyn Frolik became the first female PA in Canucks history, I believe, and I believe the second female PA in NHL history, so public address announcer in the arena. Al Murdoch is over in Nashville doing stuff for the NHL Stadium Series game, which is tomorrow. And she filled in yesterday. Talk about a great first game to fill in. Like, you get all the goals. You get to call every goal, all the 7 Canuck goals. Like a perfect first game for Carolyn. She did a great job. She was engaged in the game. Like it was a different vibe, and it sounded great. She did fantastic. She definitely would love to see her in the PA booth more in the coming years. Hopefully she gets a few more opportunities here and there. As much as we also love Al Murdoch in this on this podcast, Carolyn did fantastic. I would love to see her do that, get more opportunities to do that down the line. And one last thing before we get out of here for this Friday edition. Obviously we spent this episode talking about the Canucks and the Flames and like a very happy, very fun, loose type episode. And of course we got to kind of like dial that back a little bit here. Because like one of the big stories that's come out this week obviously has been that surrounding the Ukraine, what's going on in Ukraine, the Russian attack on Ukraine, which has been just awful to watch and awful to see. And I initially thought about starting the show with this because it's so important. It's because here's the thing: hockey comes second when things like this are happening. But I wanted to kind of do the fun stuff first, and then kind of we'll wrap a little bit, kind of come closer to like wrapping the show up a little bit here with talking about this. Because it does matter. Like there, and this has hockey implications. I would in a way, but like while that's secondary, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure. I think we'll talk about that more on Monday when we get when I have a guest to talk with about this kind of stuff. But as far as for right now, what's going on there is appalling and it's awful. And again, I wouldn't call myself a smart person when it comes to geopolitical conflict. It is not something that I'm an expert on, and you should definitely listen to experts on that stuff more than myself. But it doesn't take an expert to tell you what's going on is like true evil. Like Russia is acting and trying to act like an evil super villain essentially. And it is like they're committing war crimes essentially. Like not essentially, they're committing a war crime. They are attacking a peaceful sovereign nation and trying to turn it and trying to take it over. And it's disgusting, and it's truly disgusting. Like the Russians this is what happens when you've let Vladimir Putin cook for as long as he have, and let him and continuously given him power and more power, is he just kind of, he's been very clearly been inching towards this for years and just waiting for the moment to do so, and he thought this is now, and hopefully we're not going to let him. Hopefully the world isn't going to let him, because it's trash. Like, it's complete trash. This is Russia. This is the Russian government and the way the Russian political sphere operates, like, and has for a while, where they just they think they can just get away with everything, and in some cases they're obviously, unfortunately, kind of right. Like, you look at things like, obviously on a much less serious scale, the Olympics, where they have routinely cheated in events over the last 12 years. Like, the last 12 years, there is routine evidence of them doping and cheating in these events, and yet they never actually truly get punished, because nobody seems to care. Like, nobody seems to willing to put their foot down towards the Russians, but right now seems to be a time where hopefully people will. And far more importantly, because this isn't just like a sporting event and a gold medal we're talking about, this is like human lives. Like, these are real human lives in the Ukraine who are being attacked and bombed every day right now, and it's truly awful what's happening. If you want to support the Ukrainian people, there is an article by Alana Kelly over at Vancouver's Awesome talking about 5 things that British Columbians specifically can do to support the Ukraine. It's a very good it's a very good read. Talking about just one of the big things is being making a donation to the Ukraine humanitarian appeal, and just using hashtags like #StandWithUkraine is just stuff like that, and trying to bring more help to the cause. Here they've already raised $1.2 million on the Ukraine humanitarian appeal. So definitely, I would definitely advise you to go check that out if you can. There was the Alex Ovechkin thing. I don't think we'll spend any time on this today, because again, I think this requires more than one person to be here for this. But Ovechkin, who is notably has campaigned for Vladimir Putin in the past, he said no. He asked for no more war when he was asked about it on Friday. His quote was, "It's a hard situation." This is from the athletic staff. "It's a hard situation. I have family back in Russia, and it is scary moments, but we can't do anything. We just hope it's going to end soon, and everything is going to be all right." He added, "Please, no more war. It doesn't matter who is in the war, Russia, Ukraine, different countries. I think we live in a world like we have to live in peace and a great world." Again, I'm not going to comment too much on what he said, because it's one of those things where it's like, on one hand, it's clearly that's very nice sentiment and all, but also what is he going to say, right? I think some people wanted him to take a much stronger stance, but as we've seen with players like Artemi Panarin, when you do that, Vladimir Putin, especially if you're a publicly well-known hockey figure, that can end up really causing harm to your family. Ovi is not going to say anything crazy controversial about Putin, because he knows that if he does, what can happen when that does. You saw with Panarin what happened when he spoke out against Vladimir Putin. He literally, I believe, had to go back last season. He had to go home last season because his family was being threatened by Putin's supporters. Their lives were being threatened. So again, there's nothing Ovechkin. You're not going to hear Ovechkin say a bunch of oh, this is you're not going to see him go for the jugular or anything, which is honestly fine. It's a very different climate. It's a very different climate. And we have to kind of understand that to a degree, especially when it comes to celebrities, talking about Russian celebrities talking about, Putin, because again, if I say something, Vladimir Putin doesn't care. He doesn't know who I am, but he cares when a prominent Russian hockey star says something, so he has to be very careful. And that's kind of the crux of it at the end of the day is now. And again, we'll talk about this more on Monday for sure. But as far as for right now, I think that was as good as you could have gotten out of Ovechkin, and that's fine. I would like to see more. I would like to see more players who aren't necessarily of Russian or of Russian descent or of Ukrainian descent talk about everything and what's going on and how to be a part of the solution there for helping the Ukrainian people out. Like I'd love to again in a league that is mostly made up of Canadians and a lot of Canadians, obviously a lot of Americans. I would love to see some of them be saying stuff of like, hey, here's how we can help the Ukraine kind of thing. Because in a way that matters more. Like it matters more seeing hockey players who have no stake in who have no personal stake in it, standing up to do something for what's right, and you want to see that a little bit more. So hopefully we get some of that down the line here. And also, as far as from a hockey standpoint, from what can be done, the IIHF is already talking about pulling or discussing events that were supposed to be given to Russia or like had been planned to be hosted in Russia. Hopefully, it sounds like they're going to move those games, or they're going to have a meeting this week to consider and likely plan for moving those to a different country, which is the right thing to do. And is like, I don't want to say it's the one way they'll learn because it's not really how this works, but I'll say this, like Russia for a very long time has prided themselves on their athletics, and there's a reason why things like the Olympics why they're willing to go to such ridiculously terrible lengths to win Olympic gold medals, because to them, winning at sports is a way of proving how Russia is like proving that the Russian way of doing things is the correct way and the one true way, essentially, right? So if you start taking those things away from them and those privileges of it competing and being a part of those events, especially for Vladimir Putin, who's clearly made it very clear in the past that he loves sports, especially hockey. Like he clearly he clearly is a big sports person and cares a lot about them. If you start taking those toys away from him, it's going to be very hard to justify. It's going to make things a lot harder for him, and it's going to put more public pressure on him in Russia when Russian athletes stop being allowed to go to things. So that kind of might be something that like has to be considered here in certain elements is, can you keep the Russians from taking part in some of these events? Like is it the Russian people's fault that they're involved in this? Not to a certain degree, no. But at some point you kind of have to do the whole, we're going to punish everybody until the person in charge, the person who can make the right decision, who has the power to make the correct decision, does so. We're going to punish everybody for that. That's kind of what you have to do with sports right now. Like you cannot have any sort of sports championships in Russia. You cannot be competing against their teams. You have to start hitting them where it hurts. And that's in things like sports where that can be made an impact, because clearly that matters to them. So if you start taking that away from them, they're going to have to, it might sway their decision making a little bit. But at the end of the day, you just hope for everybody in the Ukraine to be safe, and that's what matters most. At the end of the day, is the safety of the Ukrainian people, and hopefully, my heart goes out to everybody there and anybody who has family there. I wish you all the best. With that in mind, on a bit of a somber note, or at least a sobering note, I guess. This has been the CreaseCast for Friday. Thank you guys so much for listening. A bit of a shorter episode today, obviously, with just myself. But it's been very fun doing a show by myself today. It's a rare experience, and who knows, maybe we'll do some more of these down the line. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to check out our patreon.com/CreaseCast. For $1 a month, you can just support the show, and for $5 a month, you get some bonus content, including Pacific Division Power Rankings and some other goodies and stuff that I'm working on. Be sure to check out my writing work over at CanucksArmy.com. I write there pretty frequently. I wrote about Jason Dickinson this week and whether there's a trade market for him. I know we said we'd talk a little bit about Jason Dickinson in the show. Just ended up not getting there. But the article talks about it a lot, about how what a struggle it's been for him specifically to get things going this season, and how obviously a potential injury throws a wrench in here. But if there was a market for him, there are a couple teams that I thought might have some interest in Jason Dickinson and bringing him into the fold for a decent price. But you'll have to go check out the article on CanucksArmy.com to see who they are. You can also check out myself on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Lock in the Crease. And you make sure to hit subscribe on your on the podcast platform. Make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel if you want full video episodes of this show. You can also Cody is not here today, obviously, but if you were here, he tell you to go check out ahlnextharvest.com and to follow for all your Abbotsford Canucks needs. They just played tonight. They lost, I believe, 4-1. But still plenty of AHL things to talk about, especially with guys like with some of the guys really stepping up. Jack Rathbone has been pretty great of late. Check him out on Twitter as well at Cody Sievertson. And until next time, everybody, this has been the CreaseCast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care.